No, I'm getting a bad vibe down here, guys. Oh, I do not like it down here. Yeah, no. My energy is completely shifted. I'm not saying I'm psychic or medium or anything, but I don't like it down here at all. And that's where they say the Victorian dark entity makes his appearance. A full embodied entity. Well, good afternoon, everybody. And today I'm standing inside a beautiful nature reserve right here in the heart of the East End in Mile End. And I wanted to combine three of my biggest passions today for you. It's spooky, it's terrifying, it's historic, it's Victorian. Yes, today we're going to talk about Victorian history, the East End, and we're also going to talk about one of the most haunted buildings in London, and definitely the most haunted school in the UK. Today's plight is the children of the East End. In what was the richest, largest city in the world in Victorian times, the East End of London had one of the worst third world slums known to humanity. And the basic human rights of survival were denied by every citizen in the East End of London. And that was food, accommodation, clothing, and particularly for children, education. Education was literally non-existent. These children were abandoned on streets by parents who couldn't afford to feed them, living in pickpocketing gangs. If they weren't thieving on the streets, they were sent into workhouses. So education was non-existent. Now, the history of what we're going to talk about today is a man called John Bernardo. He arrived here to London in 1866. He came here to study medicine, actually. And he was continuing on to become a missionary. And when he arrived, he was so horrified by the conditions of the East End, the abject poverty, the disease, the mass overcrowding, the living conditions. He actually abandoned his studies and he became a missionary. He opened up his first ragged school here in the East End in 1867. But the one we're going to visit today was known as the Copperfield Road Ragged Children's School. And that was opened up in 1877. And he opened it up so that the poorest children of the East End could be educated. And I want us to get a little glimpse of what life was for these children in these classrooms in this school. Now, there are several ghost hunters, seances and mediums have arrived here, and they have spoken about it being without a question of doubt the most haunted place they have ever been. Now, the ghosts that are said to haunt here are children, crying children, possibly brutally abused or physically abused inside here by teachers. Thousands of kids came here, but they're said to be crying children running a Victorian dark entity that appears in person in the basement. So I don't quite know what to expect, but what I do know is I'm really intrigued. I'm excited to show you inside the Ragged School Museum in Mile End. So we're right alongside the canal. This is Mile End Park. And just along here, we are going to see what was formerly the Ragged Children's School Museum. And right in the middle, just down the end here, were the buildings that were purchased by John Bernardo. Now, he came here in 1866, and he was the one that set up this school 10 years later. And he purchased, whether he purchased or rent, I'm not entirely sure, but I'm sure someone will correct me, these three warehouse buildings, and inside them, he housed the Ragged School. So we're going to have a look at the classrooms inside, and I kind of want a more sense, I want to feel it. I want to, you always get a vibe off a place when you first go in there. Apparently there was massive abuse in here. And I mean, we don't have to go back far to know that in the 1960s and 1970s, I mean, I even know this from stories of my own mother and father, where nuns and priests were quite, what's the word I'm looking for without being, trying to be diplomatic. Well, their punishment was very severe, involving canes and rulers. And I mean, you hear so many horror stories from back then. I even remember an incident in my own school. And I'm not always blaming nuns, but this nun, this lovely little country girl, I always feel like they picked their battles. And she couldn't draw a treble clef on the board. This would have been I'm afraid to give away my age now, I guess. Late 80s. She actually grabbed her by the back of the hair and hit her head off the blackboard. I mean, those things wouldn't happen in this day and age, but this is the Ragged School Museum. Now, it is rather eerie looking, isn't it? I mean, almost immediately, with the sky as it is today, it's quite creepy. It is said to have screaming, crying, unhappy children in here. And banging doors, spectres and light orbs being spotted all over the actual building itself. So it'll be interesting to know if we get some sense of how creepy it is inside the building. So immediately you feel that sense of Victorian London as you walk in. And they have some fantastic exhibits. Now, they used to have a kitchen here, but this I found fascinating. These children are all buried in a local cemetery, but all these kids came into care of Bernardo at one time or another and all died very, very young. And it just puts a human face to these beautiful little children who lost their lives from TB, mostly TB, and preventable diseases now, of course, nowadays. And this is a kind of a wall of remembrance as such. Of these little young souls, but it gives us a sort of an idea of what children would have been, what they would have looked like at the time, and the kids that would have been educated in this area. So we've quite a few exhibits here as well. Now, I was just talking to the director, wonderful Erica. She had so much to tell me. And just a fascinating insight into the children of the East End. And here you can see you're right on the canal. Look at these faces of the little children, destitute. Oh, and look, their eyes, don't they look like, they just sort of look a bit lost, bless them. Quite a few children with mental disability, mentally handicapped, bless them. Which is quite close to my heart because my own brother is special needs, well, additional needs now is the correct terminology. And I wouldn't know my life without him, Now we're going to have a look at a couple of the exhibitions, but first we want to get upstairs and into the Victorian classroom. And what's quite amazing is they have Victorian lessons for school children. And they teach them as they would have been taught during Victorian London. Look at this. Wow. So this is the Victorian classroom, you guys. He did say we're okay to touch things, but he requested I don't move anything, which I wouldn't even dream of doing. He said it's amazing, the stuff that happens in here. Now here we have, of course, a blackboard, sterling money table, 4 farthings, 1 penny, 2 halfpennies, 1 penny, 12 pennies, 1 shilling, 20 shillings, 1 pound. Look, this is like an abacus, I guess. And this is no doubt the teacher's desk. I daren't think what that was for. Oh wow, the cane. Is this a paddle for slapping them? Oh my God, you guys. It's quite terrifying. And there she is, Queen Victoria. Obviously in her later years, 1837 to 1901, 63 years, 7 months and 2 days on the throne. And here we have a little 14th of August, 1895. Now this quite disturbed me because I believe that this was used quite frequently, the dunces hats. And you see it here for children that didn't behave properly, I think, or didn't get their questions correct. It's quite depressing to think that children would be humiliated in that respect. I mean, bear in mind, oh sorry, this is quite noisy up here. Bear in mind, children wouldn't have had, there'd have been no knowledge of the things like we know today of autism or Asperger's, or so mental institutions, or as they call them at the time, which is obviously not politically correct today, so don't come at me, but they call them lunatic asylums, would have been full of people with just intellectual disabilities, which is absolutely terrifying to me. And the methods of punishment and torture. One was called spinning therapy, where they elevated them in a spinning chair and spun them until they, well, threw up. And they were beaten. If they had epileptic fits, they tried to beat the madness out of them. It's quite terrifying. So this is the Victorian school. Let's see if there's anything significant under here. And thousands of children were educated here, so I guess this would have been their pen and paper, these little blackboards. No, I'm feeling actually okay here, but I guess I get the sense of, I feel like I'm back at school myself. Now, this wouldn't have been a Catholic school. Apparently Bernardo was not a big fan of the Catholic Church, but I'm sure his principles were, the idea behind his work was, I mean, all good intention, but no idea what's up here, but we'll go and have a look. I believe there's quite a few exhibits. Oh wow, look at this. I'd like to know what I'm actually looking at here. What was this? Well, it was obviously a washroom or a laundry room. Oh, here we go. We can find out now in just a second. This is some sort of parlor of some sort. Let's have a look. It's an immersive three-dimensional installation conceived by French artist Clarissa d'Arquimoles. She's meticulously recreated a life-size black and white photograph taken in the impoverished East End of London. Oh my God, so she's meticulously recreated this. Found in the London's Bishopsgate Institute archive, the image shows a poverty-stricken family of hairbrush makers in their home in Spitalfields, an area once known for the notorious slums of London. And you can refer to my recent Spitalfields video. The image is a record of hardship, but it also reflects a strong sense of working pride and familial tenderness. Look at this incredible image, you guys, as well. Water pumps outside what looks a bit like Wilk Street that we visit on the Jack the Ripper tour. So basically she's recreated this family of hairbrush makers. Fantastic. Let's have a little look. And we'll see some pictures over here. And this is the hairbrushes. Some suspicious looking powder there. I wonder what that is. I'm not getting a haunted sense here at all presently, but I'd like to know what it would be like at night time, you guys. Look at this. Meticulously recreated. There's an image of a low-size candle. Is that from maybe oils? Medicinal oil. Could have been used for opium, which was used quite frequently for medicinal purposes. Laudanum, they called it, didn't they? How primitive. Look at herself. Isn't she gorgeous? Bless her. And the little trinkets here. And of course, the bed. And above the bed, revered at all times. You know, when we visit the ones in Ireland, actually, I went to several farmhouses there. So this would have been prior electricity. You always had pictures of the Pope at the time over the bed, but it seems to be quite commonplace. So it's normally the monarch. And of course, there she is as well. It's Queen Victoria. And look at these, you guys. Tiny pair of shoes. The hardship ensued. I mean, truly. I mean, we really do not know how lucky we are. So it isn't an awful lot to see, but it's definitely worth a visit. And we will put a link if anyone would like to donate to this museum. It's a group of volunteers that got together to keep this museum open in the heart of Mile. I wonder what's down there. Let me see if I can get down. I'm not really supposed to, but I'm going down because it's quite creepy. I want to be reminded, this is where you're supposed to hear the children screaming and doors banging. No, I'm getting a bad vibe down here, guys. Oh, I do not like it down here. Yeah, no. My energy is completely shifted. I'm not saying I'm psychic or medium or anything, but I don't like it down here at all. I'm way up again. And that's where they say the Victorian dark entity makes his appearance. A full embodied entity. And they also say you can see quite a few spirits and orbs in the backgrounds here. Now upstairs apparently was a boys' classroom. Right, let's see what we can conjure up here. Oh, I feel like it's all closed down actually. So yeah, when we just went up the stairs there, you guys, actually at the top was where the original boys' classroom and girls' classroom was located, and the one we saw earlier on was the infants' classroom. This was also used as a boys' classroom. I'm still not feeling downstairs though. So we're going to have a quick little 5 minutes with Erica. She's going to talk us through this. And a terrible year, 1866. Yeah, there was a horrendous cholera outbreak. They say up to less than a month, cholera claimed 5,596 lives and rendered many desperately poor, physically weakened, and in even more desperate circumstances, a tragic death toll in a terrible year. These rotten and reeking tenements, the condition of Victorian London for the poor. Look at that incredible image. 60,000 families in London lived in one room. This is also an amazing image there. All the kids crammed into these laneways and Spitalfields. And this one. So this pump here would have been the sole source of water for washing and laundry for the whole community. And the water would be pumped from here every day. It's no wonder sharing all these contaminated water pumps. But of course, it was a period of time where they believed everything was viral or in the air. They didn't believe that fecal matter could transmit through the water system. These are the back houses, cramped houses. Not for tenants, unfortunately, but landlords, slumlords at the time, made a fortune from exorbitant rents for these people. So you guys, I'm very honoured and privileged that Erica's agreed to talk to us. She's the director of this incredible museum. You've done an amazing job here, Erica.
Well, that's very kind of you to say.
And it's a group of you got together to open up the museum, right?
No, I mean, I'm long after the original guys, but it was a group of people in the 1980s. These buildings were scheduled for demolition, and this mouldered away quite quietly, which was in a way quite a good thing because nobody did anything dramatic to it.
Very true.
And then a local group of activists they called themselves the Stepney Green Association. They campaigned to get the buildings listed, created the trust, raised funds, got more funds together, and so they opened the museum in 1990.
Well, do you know, it's quite remarkable because doing research, there's very few of these that you can visit inside.
Yes.
That gives you an authentic Victorian feel. Yeah. Even looking for a Victorian prison or a workhouse, it's quite difficult.
No, I mean, it's interesting, isn't it? Because there's lots of Victorian material all around us. There are big stations. There's the House of Parliament. There's all sorts of things. Everybody knows the Victorians. They read the literature. They read Dickens. But I would agree with you. I think there's particularly the lives of the desperately poor, and we should say destitute people.
The destitute, including here, some of the children of the Victorian city here.
Yeah.
And this is just some sort of an idea as to what Whitechapel would have looked like. There's amazing depictions. Well, yes, these are pictures I've never seen.
Oh, Gustave Doré did a remarkable set of images. And this is what London was sort of famous for at the time. Sort of the wealth of
the opulence, the grandeur and the wealth.
Wealth of the rich, but and the many who clustered into the city to try and find work found themselves in incredibly insanitary and difficult circumstances. That's the issue. There's no control, and I wished we could get hold of an image that I'd like to show of a place called the Old Nicol, which is not far from here. It's all very trendy Shoreditch now.
Oh my God, of course.
And it shows housing, we can call it houses, that are really so low that people had to be doubled up in them.
Oh my God, it's crazy.
And of course, people are living without sanitation. And that's why the big cholera epidemic happened in 1866. I mean, the last major one. And it tore through the East End.
And this is Bernardo himself, right?
This is the redoubtable Dr. Thomas John Bernardo, who came to London aged 21, intending to be a medical missionary in China. The reason why we're standing in this building actually is because he lodged just north of the Mile End Road in Coburn Street. Again, close to some quite opulent parts of the East End. But he was fired by evangelical fervour, and although he's going to be training to be a doctor at the London Hospital, he was also with the China Inland Mission, but he also taught in ragged schools. There was one in Ernest Street.
Oh, he did.
And Ernest Street was a very tough street, apparently. But the China Inland Mission found Dr. Bernardo difficult to control.
Oh, okay.
He was all his life. And so he set up his Bernardos, who still exist, as you know. They date the beginnings of Bernardo's organisation to 1868. And that's when he formed his own school and the East End Juvenile Mission, as he called it.
So this was established in 1877.
The school is 1877, and it's very interesting because the school post-dates the 1870 Act, the Foster Act as it's called, when theoretically universal education was created. But you're supposed to go to school, primary school as it were. But in many places you still have to pay. And for people who were destitute, who had many children, they couldn't afford it.
And is this the gentleman without the limbs?
Oh, these are
sorry.
These are children in the care of Bernardo's, called in typical Victorian fashion the Cripples Brigade, which we wouldn't do now.
I know.
I would suspect if you look at those boys, some have obviously got probably defects from birth, but some of them may well have lost a limb in a street accident, be run over by a cart, as well as sort of like a car these days.
This implies it was quite frequent, I think.
Well, there's a lot of them, bless them, and Bernardo trained them to be tailors, so that they could earn their living. Yes, and they'd make other uniforms for the various brigades that Bernardo created. So, I mean, that was part of the idea behind the education. He called it part-time education, actually, some of the time, because they learned the basic rudiments, reading, writing, arithmetic, but also learn a trade if at all possible.
So ladies would go into, I guess, cleaning house and
Yes,
sewing
and it would
repair.
often be domestic things. Well, in fact, this school, when it was established, there was also evening classes, because Bernardo didn't think it was good for girls to be working in factories. And I suppose when you think of the match factory, you can realise why.
Oh God,
and thought it would be better that they learnt domestic routines. So they ran night classes here as well.
Oh my God.
Which we show here in this.
Oh, fabulous.
In
Yeah.
this
oh, wow, this is an incredible picture. And how many pupils could be housed in here at a time?
they were in the attendance register. There were about 1,000, but they wouldn't all be here. There might be 600. Yes, because very often attendance would be quite erratic. For instance, if the parents went off hot picking or something like that, off they'd go. But the way teachers go white in the face when I point out to them that in 1881, Dr. Bernardo appealed for funds for the annual outing of the Sunday school children to Thaden Boys in Essex on the edge of by Epping Forest, and he took 2,500 children on a trip.
Oh, yes. What is this over here?
This is Dr. Bernardo's a very extraordinary desk, which is on loan to us from the Bernardo organisation. It's called a Wootton patented desk. Wootton is a US company. They claim that Queen Victoria had one, but I don't know whether they've got any evidence. They were patented in the 1880, but of course by 1890, the typewriter had arrived, and that produced even more paper. So then we had the filing cabinets. So the Wootons only lasted about 10 years, but they're very redoubtable, as you can see.
And this essentially was a filing cabinet then here.
All sorts of things, yes.
A bit like the one they have in the House of Commons for all the MPs.
Yes, and there you can see a little glass box there, and that's where you put in little notes for Dr. Bernardo.
Oh.
But as a very, 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 very busy man, I mean, he also had this very interesting object.
Postbox, yeah. Oh,
the Davison patented appointment clock. If you lift that lid on that urn, inside it's divided into little sectors. You put one of these tablets into the sector.
Oh, yeah.
And then I think it's 5-minute sectors. And when your time was up, the little tablet, the bone tablet, would drop into that little bucket and a bell would ring and your time was up.
So you only had a 5-minute appointment, Dr. Bernardo?
Well, it might be allowed a little bit longer.
A little bit longer.
But I'd like to point out this actually rather marvellous photograph.
It's amazing.
And this is Dr. Bernardo in 1901, so the archivists and Bernardo say. So that's not long before his death. He was only just 60 when he died.
Oh, wow.
And this is in the girls' village home, which he also set up in the 1870s. And somebody's commented, who's worked a lot with sort of family albums from the 19th century and so on, says that these girls look really comfortable and middle class. They're obviously well fed. They're well dressed. They've got free flowing hair. They've got ribbons in their hair. They don't appear institutionalized in any way. Well, and that's really nice to see.
It would almost appear that they were Bernardo's own children.
Yes,
they seem that comfortable
very relaxed.
With them.
Yes,
yeah.
I think it says a lot about him.
It does. That's a very good point, Erica.
Yeah, I think so. And that's in the girls' village home.
As opposed to the poor kids on the wall outside. They they look soulless, don't they?
Yes, they look sad. Yes.
They look sad, they do.
This is the attendance
register. Yes, of course.
The attendance register of our school. This is slightly small at the top there. That's what it looks like. It's in the London Metropolitan Archive, or the London Archive as it's now called. And what is interesting, as far as I know, this is ragged schools. Nobody knows where the term exactly comes. It's being used by 1840, and it's obviously meant to imply how very poor the children are.
Okay.
But it's often said that children were turned away from sort of other church schools and so on because they were too ragged. Well, here we've got the actual evidence from this attendance register. As you see here, we've got and his name I think was William, as I remember, and he's sent home from St John's, which is a church school,
Oh, wow.
because for ragged
Oh my
clothes.
God, that's
William Payne.
outrageous.
Yes, he was aged 9, and if you look at the attendance register further, his brother and sister both went to this school.
My God, so some of them could have been sent away for being too ragged. That's just outrageous.
And now these photographs you're looking at now, they come from Stockport Ragged School. And this shows how ragged some of them are. These are very interesting group of photographs. It's the only ones we know of taken of children at a ragged school. They've obviously been taken to a studio, which is interesting. You know, but this is what made Bernardo stay in London and not go to China and do his work here. So I think
the intentions were there. The intentions
I think a huge compassion for the
poor.
for the destitute. You know, for recognizing how you could so easily become destitute.
Wow. Well, thank you, Erica. That was absolutely fabulous. I have had such a good afternoon here, ladies and gents. I'm going to leave a link to the Ragged Children's Museum, and you can, if you'd like to donate to the cause here. They do amazing work here, highlighting Victorian London and the struggles of these children, and Bernardo. Erica's the director. Thank you most sincerely, Erica.
My great pleasure.
Absolute
Lovely
pleasure
to have you here.
And I've been delighted to be here. And it's just been an amazing, what I expected was some sort of ghost hunt, has been more of a tour of morality, walking around there. I feel
an ancestor hunt. Yeah.
An ancestor hunt. That's what I always said to them. I said, I feel a kinship or a connection to the East End, and it must be to do with the Irish migration in the area, because it's a wonderful part of London. But thank you, sweetheart. And that is the Ragged Museum, you guys. Thanks for joining us.
Good.
Eric, has been an absolute pleasure. And we'll see you on the next one, my lovelies. Don't forget to donate to the link to this wonderful, wonderful museum in the East End. Thanks for watching, guys.